right, so instead of a single voice giving a message today, we have testimonials from several of our members about what it means to be a member of ORUUC. We will hear several different viewpoints, starting with Dave Dunkirk, who, in addition to providing some lovely music this morning, is also going to talk about ORUUC.
Like most people here, I didn't grow up in the UU Church. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I think I was baptized at the age of 18 days, because it started early, and I went to a Catholic grade school. Was an altar boy. Just very immersed in the Catholic Church. Went to college, to a Catholic college out in California. And the Catholic Church was a great place to grow up in. But in my personal experience, it didn't give you a lot to grow into. You were always kind of a child in the eyes of the church. You know, you might have your ideas, and they might be contrary to the church's, and then they kind of pat you on the head and said, "No, run along now. We'll take care of things for you." So I stopped going to church after I graduated from college when I was 21 rather, and got married in the Catholic Church a few years later because my grandmother was still alive, and she was very Catholic. She walked to Mass every day, a mile. And so this was a holy lady. I couldn't break her heart. So I did the marriage in the Catholic Church, and it was abundantly clear that I just wasn't consonant with their structure, the way that they did things. And so I just stopped going to church. And a few years later, we had a couple of kids, and a few years after that, the kids started asking questions that I'd really kind of felt a little bit hesitant to answer because I just didn't feel qualified, some of which were theological. So we started thinking about looking for a church. And we had some friends up in Washington State. We lived at Hanford before we moved here. And they were our best friends, great people. They said, "Come to our church," and talked about how smart their minister was and how well-spoken he was. And he was all that, but at some point in the sermon, he said that if you don't follow the ways of their church, well, there's fire. And I'm not going to dwell on that at all, but there is fire. And my ex-wife and I didn't even have to look at each other. We just kind of ran for the exit at the end of that. But the problem still remained. We were wondering, where are we going to find a church that we can raise our kids in, that we can't wince at when they give a sermon? And we were getting set to move here, and some dear friends from school called us. They were living in West Virginia, and their interim minister there was coming here to ORUUC to become the interim minister here. His name was Don Beaudreau. And they said, "You don't have to like the church, just go there to meet Don. He's a really interesting guy, he's a smart guy, he's a great musician. You know, he's just worth the trip to go and meet him." So we thought, what the heck? So we got to the doors, and one of the first people to greet us was Tandy Scheffler, so you can do a whole lot worse than that. And the first hymn that we sang was "Come Sing a Song with Me." And, you know, I'm kind of into the music. In the middle of that song, I'm getting a lump in my throat, you know, "And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find." It's like, oh, wow, I found a home. But it wasn't quite that simple. We did meet Don. Don was a brilliant minister. He said a whole sermon, and I didn't wince once. It was great. And he was a jazz piano player. He could make that piano bounce. It was incredible the way he would pound on that piano, and he was a tremendous musician. And it was in the process of coming to church to rehearse with him on a song that I'd written that I kind of was asking myself a question. I'd been coming to the church for 3 or 4 months, and it's like, why am I here? I'm not here to stay out of hell or take time off purgatory. I'm here because I want to be here. Okay. And you know, it was a months-long process, but I finally got to that point that I'm here because I want to be here, as opposed to some threat from outside. And this is where we've stayed. My kids went through the AL classes here. After they left, I taught the AL classes myself because they said how wonderful it was and how valuable it was for them as up-and-coming young adults to learn what the class taught. And of course, the music is, this is the place where I've gotten to be able to sing with people, and that's been fulfilling for, we got here in 1997, and I've been singing with the choir since shortly after that. And it's been a wonderful ride, and this is my church home, and I've now been a Unitarian Universalist a whole lot longer than I was ever a Catholic, and I think I'm here to stay. So it's nice to be a member of this congregation, and if you have anybody that's wondering about where they are on their theological journey, you might want to suggest they come by a UU church. Might be a good idea.
Thank you, Dave. We now have Brandon and Heather Miller.
All right, so I'll tee us off and tell you basically how we got here, and then Heather's going to tell you a little bit about our first time here and more or less why we stayed. So for those who don't know us all that well, Heather and I grew up in Oliver Springs, a few miles down the road, and we were both raised in the Southern Baptist Church. So for me, that meant that my family's take on Unitarian Universalism, the first time that I had ever heard of it, was basically, they don't believe in anything, and they're going to send you to hell. So it wouldn't be until college when I would actually rediscover or think really much of anything about Unitarian Universalism again. And so, like any good college student, my freshman year, I had an existential crisis and ended up breaking down and reconstructing my entire belief system. And so, at the end of that process, a couple of years later, I was left with a set of beliefs that I didn't really feel like fit with any major religion that I was familiar with. And so, being a baby millennial, or elder Gen Z, whatever you want to call it, my solution to this dilemma came in the form of a Facebook quiz. What religion are you? Given that I'm currently a member here, you can guess what my results were. By this time, Heather's own journey had led her to join me in my heathenry, and given our prior experiences with organized religion, we weren't quite ready to jump back into church just yet. We wanted to, feel things out on our own first, and so we took a few years during and after college to figure out what we were really wanting to jump back into. And so the real catalyst for us deciding to visit ORUUC was that we had finally settled in nearby Clinton after college, and we were feeling really isolated after being back in a small town that, while welcoming on the surface, really held us at arm's length when it realized that we didn't fit back into our previous molds.
If you'll indulge me, I am going to share a couple of paragraphs from an essay that I wrote for one of my creative nonfiction classes before I graduated from UT. I wrote this, I think, this spring after we first came here. So this is spring of 24.
Sounds right.
So last spring.
Just a few months.
And so this kind of goes more into our first impressions here, but also why we've continued to come pretty consistently since then. I didn't know what to expect that sunny, already hot August morning when my husband Brandon and I attended a Unitarian Universalist church for the first time. It was 9:45 a.m. on a Sunday, and I am not a morning person. But we decided to give church another try. It had been 6 or 7 years since I'd left the Southern Baptist world of my upbringing, and nearly 10 for Brandon. After all those years, we had both begun missing the community that came with weekly meetings of like-minded people. Though neither of us considered ourselves religious anymore, leaving behind the doctrine of our childhoods had given us the freedom to be curious about other ways to connect our spiritual beliefs. Those curiosities led us to the front doors of the Oak Ridge Unitarian Universalist Church. When Brandon had first suggested visiting this church, I'd been worried that it was just another Christian church with a cool-sounding denomination. As we approached the entrance that morning, I felt a wave of relief when I saw a pride flag hanging by the door. Good, I thought. We might actually agree with these people. The door greeters that morning had been incredibly welcoming, putting us immediately at ease. They seemed so excited to see new faces, and a very kind lady, that I believe was Whitney looking back, in the lobby directed us to a name tag station. As soon as we had the tags on, members immediately knew we were visitors and were more than happy to greet and chat with us. As an introvert, I would normally find this swarm of attention to be terribly overwhelming, but every single person we chatted with that morning seemed so genuine, like they really truly wanted to get to know us. Put simply, the vibes were immaculate, and I knew before the service even began that I'd be willing to return the following week. In those few minutes between arriving and choosing a seat, I felt like I'd just walked into a family reunion full of people I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Even the shy children offered a smile to the newcomers, and one kid wearing a headband with cat ears, who I now know is named Rain, came right up to us, said, "Hi, I hope you like our church," and bounded away like nothing happened. It was delightful, and I loved it. So, as you can see, we had a wonderful first experience, and it's been pretty similar ever since. So here we are, 2 years later?
Thereabout, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been very nice to be in a space where we, like what Dave was saying, we don't have to follow a specific set of beliefs. We can just be like, oh, especially like with Embers, we can be like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about spirituality, or that's an interesting way to think about, our connection to nature, because we don't have to feel like, oh, that's evil, that's gonna send us to hell. We can just be curious. And that's been, I think, my favorite thing, is that we can just explore and just learn different things about how other people see the world without being scared of what it's gonna do to our eternal souls. So yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Heather and Brandon. And now we have Janet Fryer.
I read things. Oh, I should alert you that I have a little survey in the middle of this, so pay attention. After graduating from college, I walked away from a Protestant background. I started attending Unitarian Universalist churches and joined a committee or two. At North Shore Unitarian Church in Illinois, I was involved in a women's ritual group where we took turns developing and leading diverse rituals each month. Over time, I attended services in New Jersey, Connecticut, Chicagoland, and now here. Sometimes my husband would attend with me, sometimes not. Ira and I talked about moving out of Northwest Illinois for many years. We'd pick a city and visit there. For each trip, I would look up what UU churches were in the area. If we were there on a Sunday, we might go. We weren't really shopping churches, we were evaluating places to live. I started looking at Tennessee because it was tax-friendly, had a lot of green space, and was inland to avoid those awful storm systems. South, but not too far south, milder winters. Closer to Atlanta, where we have family. We hoped that the legendary Southern hospitality was not a myth. When COVID hit, I realized I could go to church anywhere in the country. So I attended Zoom services at 3 UU churches in the greater Knoxville area. It was not long before I was only attending here. I liked the minister, the services, and the 2 interns you were supporting during that period, Clovis and Juniper. ORUUC had its technology down pat. I was impressed that after service I could join a smaller Zoom group and get to know a few people. In terms of the town itself, Ira and I both like that Oak Ridge is more diverse politically than the state as a whole. When we visited to scope out the area, Tandy connected us with a few other couples that were similar in age and background to us. We met outdoors at benches, still distancing during the pandemic. On one of our visits, Charlie and Sheila invited us over for pizza. Tennessee is beautiful, and everyone we met was welcoming. This church, the survey's coming up, this church gives me confirmation that Oak Ridge, Tennessee is a good choice for us by the geographic mixture of its members. Let me explain. Okay, a good portion of church membership have lived here all of their lives. Have you lived here all of your lives? Okay, this could backfire on me, by the way. And some grew up here, and then moved away and came back. How many of you were in that category? So we've got a few. A notable portion have moved here from other places and found their church home at ORUUC. That would be us. Anybody else? Oh, there's a lot of you. Okay. This is unlike a church we visited in the Carolinas, where almost everyone came from other, mostly more northern states or West Coast. More than a few members there stated that if not for this church, their church, I could not live here. That shared sentiment did not signal an area where we could fit in. Looking back, I think that the pull of northeastern Tennessee and the presence of this church interacted to smooth our way down here. So in June of 2022, we drove down from Illinois for the last time in 2 overloaded sedans and started attending in person. The best way to integrate into an area is to find a community with like-minded people and to get involved or join a small group there. ORUUC is my community. Circle of Trust, line dancing, and volunteering, primarily at Rummage, are a few of my small groups. One of the questions I was sent for the service is, what about this church makes me smile? I love the bridge song and its ritual when we sing the children out to their classes. I help take the offering most Sundays, and I really get a kick out of kids' enthusiasm putting money into the collection plate. I cracked up a couple of weeks ago, and this did happen, when a mom had to convince her kids who didn't quite get how this all worked, not to take money out. It was worth it, though. I cracked up, it was great. When I attended the No Kings protest, I smiled because I saw so many ORUUCians in the crowd. At that protest rally, a man with a long, shaggy beard carrying a clipboard came up to me. He wanted to sign me up for notices of future protests. I was a bit leery of this and gave my email, but not my phone number. He called himself Beard. I asked, "Is that really your name?" He said, "Today it is." A couple of weeks later, I spotted him in the pews. That makes me smile, and it makes me proud of all of us. So thank you for welcoming us and helping us make Oak Ridge and this church our home. We belong here now. Quite possibly, we could not have done it without you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you everyone who shared today. I couldn't help but notice a common thread there that regardless of the decision of why to check out this church, that a big part of why folks stay around is how welcoming we are. At the risk of spraining my arm, patting ourselves on the back, that we are truly welcoming. And so congratulations to us, and keep that up, because it really makes a difference in people's lives. Thank you. Now invite you to sing along with our closing hymn, "Come and Go With Me."